Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to Accelerated Health TV and radio show. I'm your host, Sara Banta. I'm a health coach, natural supplement expert, and a busy mom of three. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you're notified every week with my new podcasts on Mondays and Tuesdays. And if you haven't already, join my free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. There's no downside. I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health, and you will be a part of a like-minded group to support you on your journey, in addition to truly taking control of your health. Today, we are talking to Marlisa Brown. She's a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, author, and chef. President of Total Wellness for 28 years. Welcome, Marlisa. How are you today?
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic because over the last 2 years, I believe that the level of insulin resistance and diabetes has been the true pandemic. And I talk a lot about how insulin resistance and toxicity are the driving factors for all metabolic diseases and accelerated eating or aging. So I want to talk about diabetes diet and eating right for diabetes. But first, I want to know what got you into this realm and what sparked your passion.
Well, as far as becoming a registered dietitian or as far as becoming a certified diabetes educator, because those are two different.
Well, tell us your journey.
So, all right. So I'll try to make it a Reader's Digest version. So I grew up in a totally different, my family had a business and it made me crazy. It wasn't what I was interested in. I was constantly liking to help people. So I used to bring in food and things as samples to my father's customers and like have it out like during the holidays and such. And people started to want to buy my food, even though I wasn't trying to sell it, like talk me into things like, can't you do appetizers, or can't you sell cookies, or can't you do, and then somebody that was in the neighborhood was involved with some healthy company, and they wanted a healthy version of the cookies. And I actually hadn't studied that yet. I had a degree in marketing at the time, and I figured out a way to modify the cookies to get the nutritional information to meet the standards they were looking for. And I started working and doing different things with cardiovascular doctors and their patients. And somebody says, well, you really should be a registered dietitian. And I didn't realize it was like a science degree. And I was like, oh, okay, I could do that. Then I went back to school and it was like a pre-med degree and then the nutrition. And I started my own practice and I was working with a corporate company right away when I graduated. And in the interim, by the way, I became a chef with that cooking, that cooking piece in the middle. And I had a lot of patients that started coming in that had diabetes. And the more they came in, I noticed they don't train you about, the different medications and insulin and how to calculate insulin and how to insulin to carbs and the different types of things you need to do with different stages. And so I went on a journey to educate myself to become more knowledgeable in diabetes, particularly. And then as I did that, ultimately I became certified. I took the exam and it's like a 5-hour exam, and I became a certified diabetes educator. And I have, thousands of patients I've seen, in the last 28 years. And I see other things as well, gastrointestinal and cardiovascular, but through the years, I have a tremendous amount of patients that are diabetic.
Wow. So what are you seeing that is being taught in the incorrect way, or the myths around type 2 diabetes? There's so many myths.
So it can be confusing. I mean, between type 1 and type 2. And by the way, I said it incorrectly. You really should call it a person with diabetes because it's kind of like by saying diabetes, like saying that way with a person's name, sort of like you're classifying them, and it's not. It's something like anything else that somebody might be experiencing. So the type 2 diabetes, just for those listeners that aren't as familiar, It doesn't usually require insulin when you first get diagnosed. Usually you can do diet and lifestyle, and then ultimately many become oral medications, and sometimes some injectables that are not insulin. And then ultimately, if they don't take good control and they end up on a lot of medication and they don't make the lifestyle changes, they can end up on insulin. So that's the progression. But there's lots of myths and lots of things that people think. So sometimes individuals might think, they always tell you lose weight, lose weight. And yes, losing weight can be helpful with type 2 diabetes, but it doesn't always take care of the problem. And so many think they'll go to the doctor and they'll say, just lose weight, and they lose the weight and they still have the diabetes. I have many type 2 diabetics, people with diabetes that are overweight or underweight, active or not active. And so it doesn't seem to be like one size fits all as far as that. Another myth is that sugar is the only thing that you shouldn't have, like that sugar is the culprit, or white things are the culprit. So somebody might go and somebody might say, oh, don't eat anything white anymore, like no white bread, no white rice. So they'll go out and they'll buy multigrain bread and they'll buy multigrain, whole grain rice, and they'll eat as much as they want because it's not white, but it still has, there still needs to be amounts of carbohydrates that we need to count for individuals, depending on what their particular level of diabetes is. And the same thing with sugar. I mean, certain foods even if it's a natural, healthy food, it could act the same way as sugar. White sugar isn't necessarily the culprit. Brown sugar, honey, agave, it doesn't matter what it is. It's still sugar. And bread can be like sugar and fruit can be like sugar. And it doesn't mean don't eat bread and it doesn't mean don't eat fruit. And a lot of times I find a big problem, and I don't mean to be rambling, but I sometimes am, is that an individual that is already on medication for type 2 diabetes, and somebody tells them, well, don't eat carbs anymore. But if they're already on medications that lower their blood sugars and they don't eat carbs, they can end up with a severe low, and that could be dangerous. So those are some of the things that come up a lot.
Right. And it's this constant roller coaster of balancing carbs and medication to keep your blood sugar stable. A lot of people now are using intermittent fasting to help regulate their blood sugar and possibly bring down the amount of insulin needed, which brings down the blood sugar, and then there's more of a stable line. But you talk and focus on the actual foods and why eating right is so important for diabetes management. So let's discuss that.
And absolutely. And thank you also for bringing out the piece again on the medication, because I will want somebody to eat differently depending on what medicine they are and when their medication is peaking. So certain medications make you actually pee out your sugar, so you can get low from that. Or certain medications actually kick in after so many hours. So I want them to eat when it's kicking in. So lining things up is appropriate. The most important thing to start with is that there is no one size fits all for diabetes. If somebody has high cholesterol, it is one size fits all. This is what you should eat. This is what you shouldn't eat. This is what you should eat more of. Same thing with blood pressure, what you should, what you shouldn't, what you should have more of. With diabetes, it's a question on what is actually going on in that person's body, because it's a multi-system disorder. So type 2 diabetes affects your liver, your pancreas, your cells for the insulin resistant piece. And then there's other systems as well, like hormones that are even derived in your gut. And so depending on what part of my body isn't working properly, it would make a difference. So let's say it's my liver that's dumping sugar into my bloodstream. That's what my body is doing. And let's say my cells are insulin resistant, then I can do things particularly for that individual to help them be less insulin resistant. So we might say, we want you to have smaller meals spread out throughout the day. I want you to have this amount of carbohydrate, maybe with a little bit of fat and protein at these times during the day so that your body can handle it better. I want you to exercise more to reduce your insulin resistance. The small meals, especially important if my liver is dumping sugar, because of the fact that my liver is doing that because it thinks it needs more. So the insulin resistance helps my body move the sugars that are in my blood into my cells when they're needed. And my liver won't dump intermediately if I feed myself throughout the day. But if somebody's having a different problem where their pancreas isn't producing enough insulin, even though they're a type 2 diabetic, or their hormones are not working appropriately in their gut, they may need additional things to help that along. So whole grains, small frequent meals in general, drink a lot of water. I explain to people that look at your blood like it's lemonade. If you put too much sugar in your lemonade, how do you fix that? And they'll be like, well, I don't know. I put more water. Yes. So figure that this is too much too much sugar circulating in your blood. You drink more water because that dilutes your blood a little bit. That's why they tell you to drink a lot of water when you go to get your blood tested. When you go in to get, when they go to take your blood, if they're having trouble, they say, do you drink enough water? Because it does affect your blood. So you can dilute a little, don't over dilute. I mean, I don't want somebody drinking a gallon. I'm saying you need to drink. I just had a woman on the phone this morning. Until we started working together, the only thing she drank was diet soda. She never drank any water at all. And it would be whatever she could get her hands on at any kind of drive-through was the way she ate. And certainly that causes more inflammation and contributes to insulin resistance. Also can increase your blood pressure, your cholesterol. When we work with people that have diabetes, we want to concern ourselves with sodium and fat as well, because the complications that are associated with diabetes, especially with type 2 and type 1 over the long term, can often be related to having like heart issues or blood pressure issues that come on because of having, the diabetes combined with these other foods and such in their diet.
You talk about insulin resistance, and I do as well. Can you explain? It's one of those concepts that I will talk to people about, but it's something hard to grasp. What does it mean to be insulin resistant?
Okay, so first I want to just say there's a couple of different reasons for having it. Sometimes you are actually born. Some individuals are born with insulin resistance. If their mother might have had diabetes during the pregnancy and their numbers weren't in good control, the fetus starts making insulin when it's still inside the mother, and that child can be actually born to be toward more obesity and insulin resistant. There are women that when they go through adolescence, they have things like polycystic ovarian disease, which naturally makes you insulin resistant. People that are overweight and people that don't exercise. So these are some of the reasons that individuals, have insulin resistance. There's other reasons as well. So insulin resistance, what happens when you eat, let's say we'll have lunch together right now, and we have our little meal and the body digests it. And then this food needs to be moved into our cells, across the barrier between the blood into the body parts itself. So what happens with certain individuals that have insulin resistant is the insulin is the thing that carries the food from your blood into your cells. So your cells sometimes become resistant. Think of it like a wall, like right here in between your blood and your cells. And sometimes the wall has areas that's easier to get through, like look at it like a hole in the wall. And sometimes the wall is solid like a rock. And if the insulin can't get the food through the bloodstream into the cells, it's blocked. It's an insulin resistant. And so your cells keep saying to your brain, I need food, feed me, because the cells aren't getting it. It's like, give me food, but there's no food. So the insulin resistant is a barrier between your blood and your cells that keeps the insulin from carrying the nutrients into your body where it's needed. And as you become more insulin resistant, your body needs more insulin to make it work, because if it's not working with a little bit, it needs more, right? So my pancreas starts working harder to make more insulin because it's not getting through. But the more insulin I make, the more insulin resistant I can become. So hyper making insulin not only overworks my pancreas, which might affect me later on as far as the production of insulin, but it makes these cells even more and more resistant. And there's only certain things that can help to soften that. And unfortunately, most of our lifestyles don't fit in the things that make us less insulin resistant. Most of the lifestyle is making us more insulin resistant. And that's why there's so many more millions and millions of people today that are insulin resistant, pre-diabetic, and then diabetic than we've ever had before.
Yes, I just heard a statistic that 88% of the American adult population is now insulin resistant, pre-diabetic, or diabetic. 88%. That is essentially 9 out of 10 of you listening, and you may not be diagnosed, but you're walking around with a level of insulin resistance. And I liken the insulin resistance to the fact that as a mom, you're screaming at your kids, and they just stop listening to you, right? Because they just become blunt to your voice. And then dad comes in with his one little comment and they'll actually listen. But it's an interesting concept, and the body then starts producing more, but then now the body will say, oh, I give up, right? And then we're in diabetes, and but then you have to get medication to inject insulin to work, but you're injecting the one thing that your cells are becoming resistant to. So it becomes a vicious cycle. I want to talk about the relationship of obesity for diabetics. Is there a relationship in your mind? Is it compound the issue, or are they totally separate issues?
So obesity increases your risk of developing diabetes and insulin resistance. It does. But there are many people that are obese that don't have insulin resistance and do not have diabetes. And everybody that's obese that loses weight, it doesn't always fix the diabetes, because all it does is it increases the insulin resistance. And that's something that's a really important point that you brought out about the obesity, is because a lot of people, like if you're overweight and you go to the doctor, you already know that you're overweight, right? I mean, you don't need anybody to tell you. You get on the scale, you know how much you weigh. Like let's say you weigh 350 pounds, you know you weigh what you know you need to lose weight. So they go into the doctor to help manage their diabetes, and the only thing the doctor might focus on is them losing weight. Well, they already knew that before they came in. They didn't need to come in for the appointment for that. What they need is to either have helpful tools that are going to help them to lose the weight, and other things that you're going to do if they don't lose the weight that's going to help with their diabetes management. Because if that's the only thing that they focus on, like what if I told you, let's say you came in, you're my patient, and I said to you, the next time you come in, be your next appointment, I want you to lose 10 pounds. That's what I tell you. You have to lose the 10 pounds. You promise me you can lose the 10 pounds? You're like, yeah, I'm going to lose the 10 pounds. What do you do when your appointment comes up if you gained 10 pounds?
You don't want to go.
You don't want to go. So what do? You reschedule your appointment. You make up some excuse, right? Okay.
Exactly.
So now, the doctors now, they can only renew medications without seeing you for like 6 months, right? So let's say my appointment was 3 months later. So I figure like a couple more. I keep moving it, because I can't go in. I was 340 pounds last time. Now I'm 360 pounds. I can't go in, right? Because they're going to say something. I don't want them to say anything. So I keep delaying. And now it comes to the point where they can't renew my medications if I don't go in. So actually making it all about weight sometimes with the patients actually makes it so they're less inclined to get the care if that's the only thing you're going to talk about. It's just the same thing if somebody can't gain weight. It's if they don't, you can't put that kind of a barrier on somebody. So yes, losing weight is helpful, very helpful most of the time with people that are overweight when they have insulin resistance. But if you focus on that and you put too much energy on it, the people already know that they're overweight. Either give them some tools and just let that go and talk about other things that are going to help them. But don't put all your energy in that. Especially people do this often with their children too. Like they take their child to the doctor. The doctor says your child's obese, because that's the terminology. You're 20% above ideal body weight or over 30 BMI, you're obese, which is the term we use, which is really kind of a nasty sounding term, right? But that's the medical term. So they tell the parent, your child is obese and most likely they're insulin resistant and they're probably going to get diabetes. And the parent freaks out and goes home, and they have 3 kids. And let's say the other 2 is skinny and no problems at all. And the skinny ones are eating everything, and they're trying to watch this person that's overweight and trying to restrict everything. And what happens with that kid? Okay, that kid is not only, first, there's a lot of shame issues involved, guilt issues involved, and then of course there's going to be sneaking food and things like that for the rest of their lives. So
I am so happy that you brought this up, because there's so much shame and mental and emotional feelings around food. And unfortunately, it's not like alcohol or drugs where you just abstain. Everybody's got to eat. So it's something that we face on a daily basis. And there's so much social, emotional, shame, feel good parties, gatherings, just getting at the dinner table on a daily basis with your family. And so let's talk about the shame associated with eating and how this can actually worsen someone's insulin resistant because they're already on this path and they're shame related, and then they're going to hide the food like you're talking about, and it's this vicious cycle.
It's true. I actually did a stand-up comedy thing on this, making fun of the system. And it was like, you don't tell the wrong person that you're on a diet because they're going to be watching you all the time. And then it gets to the point, where you're sneaking in the bathroom to run the water to eat the potato chips so that nobody sees you. And then you have this bag, it's half full, and you can't leave the half bag in because they'll catch you. So now you got to finish off the bag because they'll get rid of the evidence so they don't see you, because otherwise if you come out with half a bag, they're going to realize you ate it, right? Because, you got to get it out of the house, not even put it in the garbage outside. You got to drive somewhere to get rid of that bag. And the truth of the matter is that people that are having some sort of food related issue, whether it's diabetes or something else, they always seem to feel like if their numbers aren't right, that it's their fault. That's a natural thing. I should know better. I know what I'm supposed to do already. I really should be able to control myself. I have no self-control. I have no motivation. They self-talk. They get up in the morning, they look in the mirror and they go, oh God, if they're heavy, they'll be like, oh God, you're so fat. They talk to themselves. They say these things to themselves. And then there's other people out there that reinforce this negative message, that tell them, like, you're at a party and, let's say you didn't have anything that would have hurt your diabetes. You were saving it up because you wanted a piece of the chocolate cake, let's say, so you had plain grilled chicken with plain salad, and you didn't eat the bread and you didn't eat the breaded appetizers because you just wanted that little piece of cake. And you go over to get that piece of cake, and there's somebody, that shame-oriented person's the one that's cutting the cake. And they're cutting everybody a piece of cake that's big enough for Fred Flintstone, that giant piece. And then they give you this little tiny itsy bitsy piece and they go, and you really shouldn't be eating that, should you? As they give it to you in front of other people. Or they start to talk to you about your weight or your eating in front of other people. And so this reinforces, so now the food becomes an obsession now, as opposed to like a healthy attitude about food. I'm obsessed. I'm thinking about that piece of cheesecake or that piece of chocolate cake or whatever it was, the pasta that I didn't eat. And now it's like, when I'm not, it's not that I'm going to be like a binge eater. Not everybody that has it, but you want to have it more because you were restricted, and it affects the social event. You go to the social event, you're feeling, you're feeling uncomfortable. You can't enjoy the food. It's Thanksgiving. You can't enjoy the food like everybody else because everybody's watching you. And so it kind of like one thing affects the other, and it's like a domino effect. And ultimately a lot of people get so disgusted with themselves, and they shouldn't be, because like I tell everybody is that, you're a person and you're entitled. Not everybody's perfect all the time and whatever. You're entitled sometimes to have something that's not perfect for you, but you try on the whole in your whole lifestyle to try to do the best you possibly can. You can't beat yourself up when you have something that everybody else is having because it's not good for you. You just have to try to be as healthy as you can on another time. Don't look at it as a bad thing. You're a person too. And a lot of times they start to not feel that way about themselves.
And not only that, but when you're stressed over the shame or the feelings surrounding food, that increases your cortisol, and cortisol will increase your fat storing hormone. And then you're gaining weight without even eating the food that you're ashamed about even thinking about. So,
well, it's true that stress increases your hormones. I mean, adrenaline gets going, like they think you're going to run from a dinosaur or something like that, so that adrenaline is going, but you're not using it. It's just kind of like bouncing off the inside of your body and affecting all these other hormones as well. You're right.
well, I want to get your opinion on Ozempic. Ozempic is a drug that has been approved for diabetics, but now it's being approved for people without diabetes, and people are using it just for quick weight loss. And I just want to know what your opinion is on this debate over non-diabetics using Ozempic.
So, okay, so what Ozempic is, so we make hormones in our gut. We have gut derived hormones. And one of the guts they've named, it's called GLP-1. And this particular hormone makes it so our first phase insulin works faster. It slows our digestive process so the food doesn't go into the bloodstream as quickly, makes us feel full for a longer period of time, makes us a little less insulin resistant. And because you're feeling full, obviously, you're not going to usually eat as much. And it does have an effect on weight. Usually it's about maybe 10%, percent weight loss possibilities, increased weight loss possibility. So what they found was, and the Ozempic is a once a week injectable, and there's other injectables similar to it that they're using the same way, like Trulicity, and there's other ones that are out there. It's a once a week pen injectable that you just do it that one time, and it supposedly will help with all the diabetic related things I mentioned, plus can help you lose weight. So because of the fact that it's been helping a lot of people lose weight, and because there's less side effects than a lot of other medications with it, a lot of the doctors, first they were using it off label, and now it's becoming more predominantly used, were giving it to their patients just that were overweight, that weren't diagnosed with insulin resistance and weren't diagnosed with prediabetes or diabetes. And they were finding some results, and patients were saying they weren't as hungry and they weren't eating as much. And so more and more doctors are recommending it. There are, for some individuals, some side effects from it. For people that are, a lot of people that have had problems with constipation, with slow gastric emptying, some people have had severe constipation related issues. And some people that already have heartburn related issues have had much more heartburn from it. So those are the more common side effects from it. But if you have somebody that has large amounts of food and they're still not satisfied, and they're thinking about having surgery in order to lose the weight because they can't reduce their appetite, the Ozempic has less side effects than some of the other appetite suppressing types of medications. If you have somebody that has diabetes that isn't doing well on the less side effect medications, and the medications that they're trying on them are causing them severe side effects, it generally has less side effects than a lot of the other medications. And so it might be a choice. But in general, just to lose weight, if somebody hasn't tried any lifestyle, hasn't had any coaching, hasn't seen any dietitian, hasn't even ever gone to exercise at all, I mean, I don't think that's the first line we should be going for. But unfortunately, sometimes that's what the community has been recommending. And I say, let's make some changes first, see how well you do with that. And then if you can't sustain lifestyle changes and positive reinforcements and things like that, then maybe consider. Or if you absolutely need medication, then consider. But don't just go on medication always or surgery always first as the thing to resolve if you've never tried anything before.
That's the beef that I have with it, is that these doctors are recommending it, but they're not incorporating the lifestyle changes. They're not educating their patients on how to change their diets or their exercise programs, or even their sleep regimens and stress management, all of those things that also affect blood sugar and weight gain and weight loss. I know that you talk about the FODMAP group of foods. Can you please go into what those are and how that affects, diabetes and overall health?
So they're different related things, okay, but it's certainly for people that are having gastrointestinal issues, something worthy of a mention. Let me try to do it simply without making it a confusing factor. Let's just say that foods that have carbohydrates fall into different categories. And it's not like saying fruits and vegetables, because all the fruits don't fall into the same categories and all the dairy products don't fall into the same category. It's kind of like specific foods fall into specific categories. And because of that, if you have, let's say you've been told for years you have irritable bowel and there's nothing wrong. They did the colonoscopy, they did the endoscopy, they did all kinds of tests. Nobody found anything, but you're always having issues with your stomach, gastrointestinal issues. Sometimes something as simple as a food intolerance to a specific group can cause that to be worse. And so I'm going to give you a couple of examples of FODMAP that people might be familiar with, the ones that are more common. So the acronym, by the way, is FODMAP, just for those that are listening. And, it's fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, and monosaccharides and polyols. It's confusing. So we'll just say FODMAP. And one that a lot of people are familiar with is lactose intolerance. Lactose is one of the FODMAPs. And a lot of people know that certain dairy products can make them have a run to the bathroom, and they have enzymes like lactate pill that somebody might take for that. But that's a FODMAP that's actually a treatable FODMAP. You can get the lactose-free milk, and you can get lactose-free products, and you could buy lactate. But a lot of the FODMAPs don't have something that you can do to take to stop you from having your reaction. And sometimes it's difficult to figure out which ones are affecting which person. So, for example, some of the sugar-free sweeteners have sugar alcohols in it, and they use those in a lot of the sugar-free diabetic products. And that certainly could make some have a mad rush to the bathroom for an emergency visit. And you wouldn't realize, first off, some of the sugar-free products actually have as much sugar as the regular sugar-containing products. That's the first thing I want to say, because just because they used a sugar alcohol that doesn't have to be classified as a sugar doesn't mean it's not going to make their sugars go up. That's the first thing. The second thing is the differences between the sweeteners affect people in different ways. So I might go out and get like sugar-free chocolate candies and a sugar-free cookies. And if I have too many of those, I am going to have severe gastrointestinal issues and a run for the bathroom. Sometimes some of the FODMAP products and could be something that makes it so you can't go. So it affects bathroom-related issues. Garlic, onions, and gluten are kind of in the same category, and beans are in that same category. So if you went out and you had a strong Italian meal with a lot of garlic and onions in it, you might feel, every time I have Italian food, I don't feel good, but you might have a sensitivity to that particular category. And so you normally would need to certainly get a couple of educational books and things to read about it first. And you need to sit down with a registered dietitian that's a specialist in FODMAPs, because it's hard to figure out by yourself. And the last thing you want to do is to be spinning around trying to figure out and taking things out that you don't have to take out. So in a nutshell, the part that affects the diabetes would be the sugar-free alcohol related products that it's a high FODMAP.
The sweeteners are something that most people don't want to hear what you just said about, because they're the substitute. Well, I'm doing the right thing by having the diet soda. I'm using Splenda. I'm using even stevia. I can tell you personally, I used a lot of stevia before, and I felt this water retention that I was carrying around. I cut the stevia out, and within 24 hours, all of the water just went away. The inflammation went away, and because it backs up your liver. But that sweet taste makes you actually crave more real sugar. So then you're more you're probably going to end up eating more real sugar to fill that. And it does play with your insulin levels. It's something that people don't think happens, but it actually does. And it can cause that leaky gut and the gut issues that you're talking about. Well, I want to know, is there anything else that we have not discussed as far as diabetes goes, and your protocols that you put your clients on to help, especially with lifestyle changes?
So I generally try to look at each person as an individual, and I try to develop a plan that fits for them. You can't take somebody and turn them into somebody else, especially if they don't want to go there. If somebody really, really likes sweets, and you're going to tell them don't eat sweets anymore, or don't drink alcohol anymore, or don't drink soda, the no thing doesn't seem to work. So what you have to do first is ask somebody what they want. Why are they coming to you? What do they want to accomplish? How hard do they want to go 100% all in, or do you just want to go a little bit? Because the most important thing is to work from a person's perspective, not from mine. So I might have my ideas, but my ideas might not be the same as theirs. So I had a man that came into my office once, blood sugar out of control, quadruple bypass already had happened, 250 pounds overweight, high blood pressure. He walked into the office, he stuck his hand in my face, and he said, "If you're going to tell me I can't eat prime rib and donuts, I'm out of here." Now, I could have said, well, goodbye, like if I wanted to be from my perspective. But I said to him, we'll see what we can do. And so we know that he's never going to be a really healthy eater. We know that. We know that he's never going to go 100% all in. So what we could do with this gentleman is try to make the things that he likes a little bit healthier for him. It's almost like when somebody's trying to save up for vacation and they're putting their pocket change into a jar and you say, oh God, that's never going to add up. But in a couple of years, there's enough money to go to the Bahamas, right? In that jar, a little bit at a time. So we got him to walk a little. We got him to go from donuts to angel food cake. We got him to go from prime ribs to sirloin. He's never going to be non-meat. He's never going to, you see what I'm saying? He had his own perspective. So if somebody only eats out, we have to work around that they only eat out. If somebody only wants to cook a little, we have to work around that they only want to cook a little and come up with something that's a little better than they're doing right now. And what's going to happen is there'll be an improvement. And some people, it'll be 100% turnaround. We'll get them off of medications. They'll be feeling good. They'll be on bike runs. They'll be doing all kinds of things. And on other people, they're just going to be a little bit healthier than they were. But that little bit healthier than they were might prevent complications and give them a better quality of life. So that's what I try to do. I try to work from somebody else's perspective, not mine. And I never, ever judge anybody because that's the worst thing I can ever do.
Well, that's just adding the shame that they're already used to, correct?
Yes.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Marlisa. Can you tell everybody where they can find you?
So, okay. So if you go, I'm in a couple of places. If you Google Marlisa Brown, I'm Googleable. Okay. I'm on Instagram, Marlisa Brown 8. On Facebook, Marlisa Brown, the dieting dietitian. I'm on LinkedIn. I have several books. If you go on Amazon and you type in Marlisa Brown, you'll be able to see my gluten-free books, my lifestyle books, and I'm actually working on something new coming up called I Woke Up Fat. So you'll be able to see that as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. What an amazing topic because it's affecting so much. And I now want to get into some supplements and some other things that you can use to help further along your ability to get rid of your diabetes or reverse it or manage it. And I have used the Ascent Diet Cleanse, put these supplements together to reverse your type 2 diabetes within 30 days. And the synergistic combination increases ATP production, which is your true cellular energy. And aren't we all just trying to eat food to get energy, right? But the energy isn't necessarily coming from the food that we're eating right now. What we need is ATP to increase at the cellular level. And that will also increase mitophagy, autophagy, thyroid health, metabolism, mental clarity, physical energy, endurance, and all of the anti-inflammatory mechanisms in the body. And when we talk about diabetes and insulin resistance, you've got a lot of inflammation in the body. You've got a slowed down metabolism. You've got brain fog. You've got the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's, which is known as type 3 diabetes. So all of these things start happening in the body. And what we just need is to learn how to tap into a different type of fuel. So as a result of the Ascent Diet Cleanse, blood sugar decreases, insulin resistance reverses, the need for exogenous insulin declines, and body fat is utilized for fuel. So your body is actually now learning how to tap into its own fat stores for fuel. And what else happens is the cell's phase angle, or the cell's ability to absorb nutrients and release those toxins that we're being so exposed to that affect ATP production, that is going to improve as well. And chronic disease prevention will improve. And like I mentioned, there will be a reduction in inflammation. So in the Ascent Diet Cleanse, the game changer is the accelerated keto. And this flips you into ketosis within 30 minutes, immediately diminishing the need for insulin and reversing insulin resistance. So how this works is your body is flipping from burning glucose to burning its fat stores. It's like the gas guzzling Suburban versus the Tesla, right? Clean burning energy. As the appetite's suppressed, the body is able to use its own fat stores for fuel and no longer needs the dietary glucose at that moment. And the body naturally enters a fasted state, which further enhances insulin sensitivity and helps the reversal of diabetes. But what's different about accelerated keto versus any other ketone supplement is it has other ingredients in there, Ayurvedic ingredients, to break down the saturated fats into unsaturated fats. And these unsaturated fats are easier for the body to utilize and easier for the body to convert to ketones. So imagine that wax candle that's solid. When we light the candle, the solid wax, which is the fat, turns into a liquid, and then it's taken up by the wick to burn more easily. And because of this property, accelerated keto is able to defat that liver. And we all know that the liver is responsible for converting the stored fat into ketones and usable energy. Now, in the last 2 years, the spike protein is also hindering the liver's ability to break down fats and break down protein. So we need to cleanse that liver even more than ever before. And the more a person's liver is defatted and unclogged, the easier it is for the liver to function in all areas, including producing those ketones. It's also where the thyroid hormones convert from T4, which stands for tyrosine and 4 molecules of iodine, to T3, 3 molecules of iodine. And that T3 is the active thyroid hormone. As the liver is functioning better, the thyroid works better, increasing metabolism and energy further. So then you add in the acceleradine, and sufficient iodine in all tissues is needed to help produce a healthy 36 ATP versus just 2. So what does that mean? That's 18 times the amount of cellular energy that you're getting from iodine versus not having iodine in the body. So this is going to improve brain function, your energy in your brain, and then also in your body to give you that energy physically, mentally, and then of course spiritually. You feel better, right? You're bridging through your thyroid is the bridge from your brain to your body. And that thyroid is the master endocrine gland. When it's not functioning optimally because you don't have enough iodine, then you're going to feel more depression, more anxiety, more ADHD symptoms, brain fog, and leading to things like dementia and Alzheimer's, which is known as type 3 diabetes, versus having that clarity, the mental clarity, the mood lifting, the openness, and getting all of the halogen toxins out of the brain and out of all 100 trillion cells in the body. Acceleradine is the only iodine that is radiation free, 100% bioavailable, and of course enhanced with scalar frequencies to detox the body of the radiation and heavy metals. What you can also use, our guest was talking about some of the medications like insulin, but then there's also one called metformin that a lot of diabetics use. Well, you can use berberine, and berberine HCl helps support normal glucose and lipid metabolism, lipid meaning fat, keeping insulin and blood glucose in a healthy range. And berberine has been shown to be just as effective as metformin without the side effects. And then the HCl helps digestion, especially with the digesting fats and the protein, which then will help with nutrient absorption. Part of the reason that we have cravings is our cells are screaming at our brain saying, feed me, because I don't have the nutrients. Even some of our vegetables don't have the nutrients they used to have 50 years ago because the soils are depleted. So the HCl is helping absorb the nutrients from the wild animal proteins like the bison, lamb, wild fish, organic eggs, those proteins that are so nutrient dense, and staying away from some of the proteins like the poultry and the chicken and the conventional beef that are now full of amyloid proteins that lead to Alzheimer's and dementia that cannot be broken down in the tissues and can disrupt the gut and lead to gut pathogens taking over your gut. This is something that we used to not worry about, but because of the spike protein, that has increased the amyloid burden on the body, and we have to really be careful about the types of proteins that we eat. So also you can use the accelerated scalar copper. According to scientists' reports, type 2 diabetes is often brought about by the oxidation of cells lacking essential metals, which insulate the cells and protect them from free radicals. So the free radicals attack healthy cells and mutate the DNA. One study shows that copper deficiency or abnormal absorption of copper damages the cellular defenses in the body's tissues, leading to the onset of diabetes. Who knew, right? Next is accelerated ancient salt. So salt, the wrong salts are bad for you. They will make you bloated. They will cause inflammation in the body. Most of those salts are full of microplastics and stripped of all the other minerals. The accelerated ancient salt is full of 62 minerals, and a lack of the proper sodium intake will cause additional issues with that sodium-potassium pump, actually leading to that water retention. So when you put a little bit of the accelerated ancient salt on your tongue, you'll experience a boost of energy. It can decrease appetite. It can also help bring a diabetic's blood sugar down just by putting a little pinch of salt on your tongue, and your cravings start going away. There's a mix signaling into the brain where your brain thinks it's craving sugar, but it's actually craving hydration and salts and minerals. So next time you're craving your sugar, put a little bit of the accelerated ancient salt on your tongue or in your water or on your piece of wild animal protein and see where that craving goes. So the accelerated ancient salt is like no other salt. It's composed of the raw, unbleached, unheated salts, and it is also enhanced with scalar frequencies to reorganize your DNA, and it works in conjunction with the accelerated iodine. And it also helps alleviate nausea, tastes amazing. It has a strong negative charge that helps pull out the positively charged toxins, parasites, and undigested fats. So I also want you to look at the fact that most people who are diabetic or insulin resistant, they're looking for energy, right? They're looking to eat for that energy. And they are suboptimal thyroid patients or hypothyroidism. Most people have anxiety or depression, and they need some thyroid help. The accelerated thyroid is the most comprehensive thyroid supplement that helps increase metabolism, fat oxidation, brain function, energy, and weight loss. So many people are experiencing unexplained weight gain. And then they go on a diet. They say, I'm going to cut out all the sugar. I'm going to be good now. And it's not working, right? Because they're focused on their weight. And then they go binge, and then their blood sugars go up and their insulin resistance just keeps climbing. Well, if you feel good and your metabolism's working and the fat oxidation is working, then you actually might do what you're wanting to do and cut out the sugars, the processed foods, and get out and do the exercise you're supposed to do. I lastly want to touch on the fact that cleansing your liver is so important. And that's why I really recommend doing the liver flush 3 to 4 times a year. The supplements in my liver flush soften the liver stones and prep the liver to release the stones into the toilet. And you will see hundreds to thousands of stones in the toilet. And as the detoxification improves and the liver's functioning improves, fat burning increases, metabolic rate increases. That will affect your thyroid function, your metabolism, fat burning, and your ability to regulate your blood sugar as well. So all of those things are really important to your blood glucose level and reversing any sort of diabetes or insulin resistance. So thank you for joining me today. If I can help you with your health issues, contact me directly through the website, sarabantahealth.com. Happy to put together a protocol for you. Join the free group coaching on Telegram with the link below. There's no downside. You join, I teach you on a daily basis with tips and tools to enhance your health, and we troubleshoot together. You will be a part of a like-minded group to support you on your journey, in addition to truly taking control of your health. All of the protocols and supplements I discuss are all found on my website, sarabantahealth.com. And you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Accelerated Health Products, and across over 100 channels under Accelerated Health TV and radio show, including YouTube, Stitcher, Pandora, iTunes, or whatever podcast platform you subscribe to. If you like what you hear today, please subscribe and share with a few of your friends who may need my help. I'm here every Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific and Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, so join me live. Again, you can find the supplements on the website and use Welcome 10 for 10% off site-wide. Thanks again for joining us here, and we will see you next week.